In 2024, more than 14,000 new AI startups launched. By early 2026, roughly 40% of them were already dead. One of the most talked about collapses was Yupp.ai, a company that raised $33 million from A16's crypto and a roster of well-known angel investors, then shut down in less than a year. It wasn't reckless or poorly built. It simply got outrun by the same labs it was trying to serve. Here's what makes that number almost impossible to sit with. In that exact same window, SpaceX went public, and by June 2026, its market cap had climbed past $2.5 trillion. Elon Musk's paper net worth crossed $1.1 trillion. Forbes added 45 brand new AI billionaires to its 2026 list. Somewhere in Silicon Valley right now, a founder is watching their company run out of runway in the same news cycle where another founder just became richer than most countries. If you've ever thought about starting a company, or you're already 3 years into one that hasn't broken even, you need to understand exactly what this ladder actually looks like, because almost nobody explains it honestly before you climb on. Here's the shape of it in one sentence. You will very likely take a pay cut to start. You will almost certainly not become a unicorn. And if you somehow make it all the way to the top, the company you built will no longer be the company you own. This is every level of a career as a Silicon Valley tech founder. The real salary at each stage, the real odds of surviving to the next one, and what's actually left of your company by the time the world calls you a success. If seeing the real math before you bet your savings, your salary, and possibly years of your life on a startup is worth 15 minutes, hit subscribe now. There's a lot more where this came from. You start with no funding at all, just an idea, and whatever savings you're willing to put on the line. At this stage, most founders who pay themselves anything take somewhere between $40,000 and $75,000 a year, and a large share pay themselves nothing, funneling every available dollar back into the product and the first handful of customers. If your company isn't generating revenue yet, that number can simply be zero, month after month, while you keep working full-time hours and draining a personal savings account instead of a paycheck. This is the point where most people quietly drop out, and the ones who don't usually go looking for outside validation and outside capital, which for a huge number of first-time founders means one specific door. Y Combinator. It's the most recognizable startup accelerator in the world, and the numbers around it are almost designed to humble you. YC now receives somewhere between 20 and 40,000 applications per batch and admits roughly 250 companies. Depending on the batch, that puts the acceptance rate anywhere from about 1% down to as low as 0.6%, the lowest in the program's history. For context, that's a tighter admission rate than most Ivy League universities, and getting in doesn't mean you've made it. It means you've earned the right to keep playing a game where the odds only get harder from here. Whether you get funded through an accelerator, angel investors, or your own credit card, this is where the real ladder begins. And the next rung is the one that finally puts a number on your work. You close a seed round, and for the first time, you're allowed to pay yourself something that looks like an actual salary. Seed stage CEOs average around $153,000 a year, with most clustering between $132,000 and $149,000, and a $2 million plus raise typically supports something closer to $130,000 to $170,000. It's real money. It's also usually less than you'd make as a senior engineer at the company you just left to start this one. But the salary isn't really the cost of this round. The equity is. A typical seed round dilutes founders by around 20%, which means that by the time the round closes, the median founding team has already given up nearly half their company, retaining about 56% of it on a fully diluted basis. You didn't lose control yet, but you just watched nearly half of everything you're building stop belonging to you in exchange for the runway to keep building it at all. Here's the part that almost nobody says out loud at this stage. Taking the money doesn't reduce your risk. It raises the stakes. You've now got investors expecting a return, a board seat that isn't yours, and a ticking clock measured in months of runway instead of years of patience. The next round doesn't just test your product anymore. It tests whether the story you told to raise this one is starting to come true. Survive to a Series A and your salary climbs again. CEOs at this stage average around $203,000 a year, with some data putting the typical figure closer to $183,000. On paper, this is the moment people start calling you successful. Underneath it is a set of numbers almost nobody outside the founder world ever hears. The round itself costs you again. Median dilution at Series A runs around 18%, which pushes median founder ownership down to roughly 36%, meaning that by this point, the majority of the company you started no longer belongs to you, even though your name is still the one on the door. And the pressure that comes with defending that shrinking stake is measurable. In a 2025 survey, 87% of founders reported experiencing anxiety, depression, or burnout, often more than one at the same time. 54% say they experienced burnout in just the past 12 months, and 68% of founders admit they're actively hiding their mental health struggles from the very investors and board members now sitting across the table from them. This isn't a handful of unlucky founders at struggling companies. It's the documented average experience of surviving to Series A. And here's the number that shows what people quietly do with that information. 49% of founders say they've considered quitting their own company because of stress and burnout. Not because the business failed, but because staying in it stopped feeling survivable. Push through to a Series B, and your salary settles into what looks like a real executive paycheck. CEOs at this stage average around $216,000 a year, with some reports putting the median founder figure closer to $235,000. But the equity story keeps repeating itself. Dilution at this round runs around 14%, which brings median founder ownership down to roughly 23%. You're now a minority owner of your own company, sitting on a board where your investors' votes can outweigh yours. And this is the level where the odds finally become almost impossible to ignore. The probability of any individual VC-backed startup reaching unicorn status, a valuation of $1 billion or more, sits at roughly 1%. Even at the seed stage specifically, where founders already beat the odds just to get funded, only about 1 in 40 companies, or 2.5%, ever climbs high enough to be called a unicorn. You didn't just survive Series A's burnout numbers to get here. You're now one of the roughly 1 in 100 founders whose company is even statistically positioned to reach the very top of this ladder. And getting positioned still isn't the same as arriving. If seeing exactly how thin these odds get at every single stage, not just the headline number, but the real math founders don't put in their pitch decks, is worth your time. A subscribe helps more people see it too, and it costs you nothing. Once you line up all 4 levels, the shape of this career stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like exactly what it is: a business model. Just not yours. It's the venture capital funds. A VC doesn't need every company it funds to succeed. 75% of venture-backed startups never return cash to their investors at all. and the fund loses its entire stake in roughly 30 to 40% of the companies it backs. That's not a failed strategy. That's the strategy working as designed. Here's why. VC returns follow a power law, not an average. A handful of unicorns in a fund's portfolio can generate more return than every other investment combined. So the fund's whole approach is built to produce a small number of massive winners, even if that means dozens of other companies burn out along the way. Every round of dilution you accepted, every push toward faster growth instead of steady growth, every board meeting where bigger, faster won the argument, all of it exists to maximize the odds that your company becomes one of the rare ones that pays for all the others. That's why the failure rate you saw in the hook isn't a flaw in the system either. A fund with 20 portfolio companies doesn't need 19 of them to succeed. It needs one of them to become the next unicorn badly enough to cover the other 19 and still post a return. You're not just building a company anymore at this point. You're one lottery ticket in someone else's diversified portfolio, and the ticket only pays out big if the numbers from Bloco 5 somehow break in your favor. Go back to the hook one more time. Global venture funding totaled $425 billion in 2025, and AI startups alone captured close to $210 billion of it, roughly half of every venture dollar deployed on Earth, all chasing one category. If you're not building an AI right now, that's half the available capital you're simply not competing for. And if you are building an AI, you're not just competing against other founders anymore. You're racing against the labs supplying your own tools. That's exactly what killed Yupp.ai from the hook. And it's not an isolated story. Researchers estimate that 60 to 70% of so-called AI wrapper startups generate zero revenue, because the moment OpenAI or Anthropic ships a native feature that does the same job, an entire category of companies built on top of them can become redundant almost overnight. It's a version of the base versus summit problem you've seen at every level of this ladder. Except here, the thing narrowing the base isn't a labor cost. It's the very technology the founders were building their companies around. None of this means starting a company in 2026 is impossible. It means the capital is more concentrated, the tools you're building on can out-evolve you in a single product update, and the founders who survive are usually the ones who built something the platform underneath them can't simply absorb. The ladder didn't get shorter. It got narrower, one funding cycle at a time, while the summit, as always, keeps climbing higher. So here's the full shape of the climb, laid out end to end. You start by paying yourself less than you'd make working for someone else, if you pay yourself anything at all. You fight for a seed round that costs you nearly half your company just to keep building. You survive to Series A carrying odds of anxiety, depression, or burnout that sit above 87%. If you make it to Series B, you're already a minority owner of the thing you started, and you're still only about 1% likely to ever become a unicorn. And even if you reach the very top, the exit or the IPO, the average founder walks away owning somewhere between 14 and 20% of the company that used to be entirely theirs. None of this means building a company isn't worth it. It means almost nobody explains the real odds, the real dilution, or the real toll before you hand over your savings, your salary, and years of your life to a system that was never actually built to make you rich. It was built to make a fund rich, with you as one bet among dozens. And it means the founders you see celebrated on stage at every conference are, almost by definition, the extreme outliers, standing on top of a pile of statistically identical bets that simply didn't break the same way. Now, you know what's really on each rung. If you want to see what this same brutal math looks like inside a career that trades the wild upside for a slower, steadier grind, one where the ladder is longer, the paycheck is safer, but the odds at the very top are just as thin. Go watch our episode on the big law corporate attorney. It's a completely different world, dressed in suits instead of hoodies, climbing almost the exact same pyramid.